My fiancé said he couldn't afford a ring yet. Turns out he bought one, just not for me. He said he couldn't afford a ring right now, and I believed him. We'd been together for 3.5 years. I wasn't one of those girls who had a Pinterest board labeled wedding dreams or forced ring conversations 6 months into dating. I never asked for much. All I wanted was honesty and time. His name is Ethan. We met at a friend's 4th of July BBQ. He was charming in a quiet way, the type who didn't dominate the room but made you feel like the only one in it when he spoke. He had this calm energy, like nothing could shake him, and I needed that. At the time, I was all nerves and late-night overthinking. He felt like an anchor. Ethan worked in IT for a medical firm. Stable job, steady income. Not flashy, but consistent. I was teaching elementary school, a job that gave me joy and just enough stress to feel like I was doing something worthwhile. For the first year, we were inseparable, the kind of couple people rolled their eyes at because we were always in sync. Grocery shopping felt like a date. Even folding laundry turned into quiet laughs and playful shoulder nudges. But somewhere around year 2, things shifted. Not drastically, just enough to notice. The texts got shorter, the hugs felt distracted. The way he kissed me on the forehead started to feel more habitual than heartfelt. I chalked it up to routine. Every couple hits a plateau, right? Then came the night we went to a friend's engagement party. There was champagne, speeches, tears, and the moment every woman pretends not to compare to her own life. On the ride home, I asked, carefully, gently, if marriage was something he still saw with me. He smiled, squeezed my hand, and said, "Of course. You know I do. I just can't afford a ring yet. Things are tight." And I nodded. Because I trusted him, because we weren't flashy people, because I wasn't shallow, because love was supposed to be patient. That was 7 months ago, and since then, we never talked about it again. He never brought it up, never hinted. Birthdays passed, holidays, but nothing changed. I tried not to let it consume me. I told myself we were just taking our time, that the ring wasn't what mattered. It was the life we were building. But deep down, something started to ache. Not because I wanted diamonds, but because I started wondering if he ever really planned on giving me one. After that night, I tried to stop thinking about the ring. It worked, for a while. I buried myself in lesson planning, school projects, dinner routines. I let myself believe we were still heading in the same direction, just taking the scenic route, but the signs were there. They always are. You just don't see them until you look back. Ethan started working later. He said they were understaffed, that a major client was behind schedule, that he had to pick up the slack. Some nights he didn't get home until after 10. I'd be in bed, pretending not to check the clock. He'd shower in silence, crawl in beside me without a word, and fall asleep before I could ask how his day went. He stopped meal prepping with me on Sundays, said he needed time to recharge. Our shared grocery list slowly became mine. The Netflix shows we once watched together, I noticed new episodes already marked watched. When I asked, he'd say, "Oh, I thought you weren't into it anymore." Our rhythm was off, but every time I tried to bring it up, he'd deflect with tired smiles and generic reassurance. I told myself it was temporary, that life ebbs and flows, that this was a season. Then came the first real gut punch. One Saturday afternoon, we were supposed to go to his coworker's baby shower. We'd RSVP'd months ago. I even bought a cute outfit, hoping to feel a bit more like myself again, like someone who still had things to look forward to. But that morning, Ethan said he felt sick, headache, body ache, said he was going to sleep it off. I believed him. I went alone. I sat awkwardly among strangers, smiling through small talk. I took home a thank you cookie and a party favor bag. That night, when I came home, the house was dark. Ethan was asleep, door closed. But the next morning, I noticed something strange. A receipt on the kitchen counter from a restaurant downtown, a place I'd always wanted to try, but we'd never gone to. The date matched the day he was supposedly sick. The meal wasn't cheap. 2 entrees, dessert, a bottle of wine. I stared at it for a long time. My mind raced through excuses on his behalf. Maybe he picked up food for a client. Maybe someone paid him back in cash. Maybe he went alone. But none of those maybes felt real. They just felt like insulation, the kind you wrap around yourself when the truth is too cold to touch. I didn't confront him, not yet, because I wasn't ready to hear the answer. It was a Friday afternoon in late October, the kind of gray, sleepy day that made first graders restless, and teachers even more so. Yes, I teach elementary school. First grade, 23 tiny humans with big feelings and sticky hands. It's exhausting and wonderful, and occasionally heartbreaking. That Friday had been all 3. One of my students had a family emergency, and the school asked if I could step in to speak with a social worker before the weekend. It wasn't originally my task, but I cared about that child too much to say no. So I canceled my weekend trip to see my sister and stayed in town an extra day. After the meeting, I needed air, space, something sweet. So I did what I always do when the world feels heavy. I walked to the cafe down the block. It was small, cozy, smelled like cinnamon and old books. I ordered a caramel latte and sat by the window. No phone, no grading papers, just a moment to breathe. And that's when I saw them across the street, by the florist's, Ethan, holding hands with someone else. She was tall, brunette, dressed like she stepped out of a fall fashion ad, scarf, boots, oversized sweater. She leaned into him, smiling up at his face like she knew every curve of it. And he kissed her forehead, the same way he used to kiss mine. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I sat frozen, coffee cooling in my hands as my heartbeat pounded behind my eyes. It wasn't a friendly hug. It wasn't a sister. It wasn't business. It was intimacy. And on her left hand, I saw the glint of a ring. A real one. It caught the light just enough to mock me. They laughed. She handed him a small bouquet. He tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. And in that moment, I wasn't a woman betrayed. I was a woman erased. I sat there long after they left. I don't remember finishing my drink. I don't remember walking home. My body moved through the motions, but my brain had stepped outside of itself. When Ethan came home that night, he kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted to order Thai. I said yes, because I wasn't ready yet. Not to fight, not to scream, but to see how far the lie would go if I let it live just a little longer. That weekend, I became a stranger in my own home. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. Not because it didn't hurt, but because something inside me had gone eerily still. I moved through the apartment like I was ghosting myself. I cooked, I cleaned. I nodded when Ethan spoke. I even laughed when he made a joke about a sitcom we hadn't watched together in months. But my mind, it was somewhere else entirely. I needed to know, because denial is crueler than truth, and I couldn't survive not knowing. On Saturday morning, while he was in the shower, I opened his laptop. He rarely used it at home anymore. Everything was on his phone. But I had a hunch he'd forgotten how connected things used to be. I wasn't wrong. His browser history was wiped clean, but his downloads folder wasn't. The first file I opened was a PDF receipt for a custom engagement ring. Not cheap, not subtle. Dated 6 weeks ago. My hands shook, but I kept going. There were photos. Not of her, but of locations, hotels, dinner reservations. A folder labeled Fall Weekend with a full itinerary. One of the places was the restaurant from that receipt I found. Another was a mountain cabin we'd once talked about visiting together. I hadn't even known he'd gone. That same folder had a selfie of Ethan with the woman I saw outside the florist. She was leaning on his shoulder, flashing the ring. My stomach turned, but I couldn't stop. I scrolled through old bank transactions. There were gifts, ride shares, travel. None of them ever mentioned to me. Thousands of dollars spent on a woman I didn't even know existed 2 days ago. And here I was, told for 7 months that he couldn't afford a ring. I closed the laptop, walked to the sink, washed my hands 3 times before I realized there was nothing on them. That night, I watched him sleep. Peaceful, mouth slightly open, like he hadn't just rewritten our entire relationship behind my back. And the worst part? He looked content, like betrayal was just a necessary price for happiness. By Sunday, I had a plan. I wasn't going to throw a scene. I wasn't going to text the woman or expose him online. I wasn't going to scream or beg or collapse in front of him. I was going to take everything I'd built, every moment, every quiet sacrifice, every bit of love I had left, and remove it from his reach. But not yet. I wanted one more day to pretend, not for him, but for me. So I could remember what it felt like to hold his hand and not wonder where it had been. So I could sit beside him and fake a smile while my heart rehearsed its goodbye. Because closure doesn't always come in one final explosion. Sometimes it's the slow, methodical gathering of truth. And when I left, I wanted it to be so clean, so complete, that he wouldn't even feel the cut until I was already gone. I started packing on a Tuesday, not because of some dramatic fight or final straw, but because Ethan had a late meeting and I had 3 hours alone with myself, a closet full of memories, and a to-do list I'd been quietly writing in my head since Saturday night. It was strange how clinical it felt, like I was organizing someone else's belongings. I folded clothes I no longer associated with joy, unplugged chargers I used to share, emptied drawers where our lives had once intertwined like roots, now just clutter waiting to be cleared. The bedroom was the hardest, not because of sentiment, but because of how deeply my absence would echo there. Every little missing item would whisper to him, she knew, she saw, she left. I didn't want to leave a mess. I didn't want to give him a reason to play the victim. So I cleaned as I packed, wiped counters, took out the trash. I wanted my exit to feel less like abandonment and more like an erasure. Just enough for him to realize what he'd lost. Too late. I reached out to Claire, my closest friend since college. She'd always liked Ethan, but she liked me more. When I told her what I'd found, she didn't scream or gasp. She just asked one question: "When do you want me to show up?" She came by that night with boxes, snacks, and a look on her face that said, "No one messes with my people." We packed in silence for the first half hour. Then we talked about everything except him, about old road trips, about Claire's dating disasters, about how we used to dream of opening a bookstore with a wine bar in the back. At one point, I looked around and realized this was the most peaceful I'd felt in months. Claire offered to let me stay at her place until I figured things out. I said yes, even though I knew I wouldn't stay long. I just needed space, physical and emotional, to exist without being watched by the same eyes that had lied to me so easily. I moved everything I owned into her car by midnight. Ethan was still at work. I left a note on the kitchen table, not a dramatic letter, no confessions, just a folded piece of paper that said, "Don't call, don't text, you know why." And beside it, I left the mug he always used, the one I gave him on our second anniversary. It said, "Best part of my morning." I thought it was poetic in a way, that the last thing he'd see from me was a lie he used to sip coffee from. Claire and I drove off with the windows down, music low. We didn't speak until we hit the main road. I didn't look back, not because I didn't care, but because I refused to carry his betrayal any further. And yet, even as we drove away, I felt this strange mix of relief and grief. I had loved him. That part was real. But he'd turned our love into something unrecognizable, something disposable, and now I was just free. Free to feel. Free to fall apart. Free to rebuild. The first text came at 7:46 a.m. the next morning. "Hey, where are you?" No question mark. Just that flat, confused tone of someone who woke up and realized the air had changed. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, "Are you okay? I just got home and you're not here. Did something happen?" He tried calling. Twice. I watched the screen light up from Claire's kitchen counter while sipping coffee from her chipped ceramic mug, the one with the faded "I run on caffeine and dry shampoo" print. It was the opposite of romantic, and it felt perfect. Claire sat beside me in silence. She didn't have to ask. She just reached over and tapped decline. By noon, Ethan's tone had shifted. "Why are you doing this? Can we please talk? If you're upset, let's deal with it like adults. This is seriously unfair. I deserve a conversation." The audacity in that last one made me laugh. Not bitterly, genuinely. The man who lied to my face for months was now talking about fairness. By that evening, I had 30 unread messages and 2 missed calls from an unknown number, probably him using a friend's phone. I didn't block him. I wanted him to see that I was reading. I wanted him to sit with the silence the way I had, night after night, while he claimed to be at work. He didn't stop. The next few days were a blur of guilt-laced paragraphs and voice notes I refused to play. At one point, he wrote, "You're blowing everything out of proportion. You have no idea what was really going on." That one stung a little. Not because I believed it, but because I knew that version of Ethan, the deflector, the gaslighter, the man who could wrap his betrayal in soft words and call it misunderstanding. But I wasn't the same woman who waited up for him anymore. I was sleeping through the night. I was helping Claire reorganize her kitchen just for fun. I was going on long walks with no destination and journaling more than I had in years. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I was awake. On the 4th day, I opened Instagram with a fake account Claire helped me set up. Ethan had posted a photo of a mountain cabin. Caption, "Much needed weekend away. Grateful for new beginnings." New beginnings. He didn't tag her. But I recognized the place. The same cabin from his secret fall weekend folder. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt confirmation. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd replaced me before I even left. Later that night, as Claire and I shared takeout on the couch, she asked if I ever wanted to confront him. Not to go back, just to say everything I hadn't. I shook my head. "I already did," I said. "I just didn't need him there to hear it." Weeks passed, but the silence didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It became a kind of background noise, the hum of something that used to matter but no longer did. I found a short-term rental with peeling wallpaper and a crooked bathroom mirror, and for the first time in a long time, the imperfection made me feel safe. It was a 430-square-foot studio with a slanted ceiling and creaky hardwood floors that echoed with every step. But it was mine. No shared toothbrushes, no towels drying side by side. Just me and the emptiness I was finally learning to call freedom. The first thing I bought was a lamp. Soft amber glow, nothing too bright. Then a secondhand bookshelf I filled with novels I'd always meant to read but never had the space for. A kettle, a cheap rug with sunflowers that didn't match anything, and a plant named Oscar that I'd probably forget to water but couldn't resist bringing home. I kept the mattress on the floor for 2 weeks, not out of laziness, but as a reminder. You're starting again, from zero. And that's not failure, that's power. I developed new habits, morning tea instead of coffee, evening walks around the block, just to remind myself I had nowhere to be. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I started journaling again, not about him, but about me, what I wanted, what I'd tolerated, what I'd lost in trying to hold someone else together while I was coming undone. But healing isn't linear. There were nights I still set 2 plates out before remembering. Mornings I reached for a toothbrush that wasn't there. Songs that made my throat tighten without warning. And sometimes, I still felt the phantom weight of his hand in mine, even though I hadn't seen him in weeks. Then, one Wednesday afternoon, Claire came home with news. She hesitated before speaking, the kind of pause that tells you the truth might sting. Apparently, through a mutual friend of a friend, she'd heard that Ethan's new fiancé had left him. Abruptly. No drama, no long post. Just packed her things and disappeared from his life like smoke from a match. She moved out of the cabin, took down her photos, blocked his number, no engagement, no wedding, just silence. And now, Ethan wanted to know where I was. Not to explain, not to apologize, but to try and rewrite the story again, this time with himself as the victim. He didn't reach out directly, of course. He knew I wouldn't respond. So he went through Claire. He asked if she'd just check on me, said he was worried, said he regretted how things ended, that he still believed we had something real. Claire asked me if I wanted to hear the rest. I didn't, because I already knew the ending. He hadn't reached out because he missed me. He'd reached out because the replacement didn't work, because the story he built collapsed, and now he wanted back the thing he so carelessly discarded. Not for love, but for comfort. But I wasn't his safety net anymore. And the woman he remembered? She didn't exist anymore either. That version of me, the patient one, the hopeful one, the one who made excuses for his absence and clung to the idea of what we could be, she left the moment I saw him on that sidewalk with another woman, smiling like he hadn't just lied to me for months. And I knew then what I know now. You don't grieve the person, you grieve the illusion. It's a strange thing watching your past try to claw its way back into relevance, but it loses power the second you stop playing your old role. So no, I didn't meet up with him, I didn't text back. I didn't even ask Claire what he looked like when he asked about me, because I don't care. And not in the petty, overcompensating way people say when they clearly still do. I mean truly, completely. I don't care, because I finally saw him, and once you see the lie for what it is, you stop craving the story you thought you were living in. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I don't brace for disappointment. I make tea, water Oscar, pick up the book I fell asleep reading, and on some days, when the sun hits just right through the crooked blinds, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror and don't look away. That's progress. That's peace. That's the kind of love I won't give up again. The love I've started giving myself. So if he ever tries to come back again, if he ever sends another message or walks down my street hoping to bump into me, he'll find a locked door. And behind it, a woman who no longer needs answers.